Hey guys, tonight we're drifting back to ancient Memphis, where the morning sun kisses the Nile's flooded banks, and you're about to discover why the Egyptians were absolutely obsessed with their teeth. You're waking up in a mud brick house. Your mouth tastes like the desert itself, and trust me, without modern toothpaste, you probably won't make it through breakfast without offending every deity in the pantheon. But don't worry, I'll guide you through the surprisingly sophisticated world of ancient Egyptian dental hygiene, where ox hooves and burnt eggshells were the secret to divine breath. So get comfortable, close your eyes, and let's explore how humanity's first toothpaste came to be. The first sensation that greets you this morning isn't the warmth of Ra's rays through your window opening, but the distinctive taste in your mouth. It's memorable, like you've been chewing on papyrus scrolls mixed with yesterday's barley beer. Your tongue feels fuzzy, coated with something that makes you understand why the morning purification rituals exist. You hear the sounds of Memphis awakening around you. Donkeys braying, merchants already hawking their wares, the distant sound of priests chanting in the temple of Ptah. But before you can even think about joining the bustling life outside, you need to address this situation in your mouth. Your Egyptian host, a middle-ranking scribe named Amenhotep, is already up and preparing for his morning routine. You watch as he reaches for a small alabaster jar on a shelf. Inside is a grayish powder that looks like crushed stone mixed with something aromatic. The smell hits you mint, myrrh, and something else you can't quite place. The mouth is the gateway to the body. Amenhotep tells you, noticing your curiosity. And the body is the temple of the Ka. He takes a small amount of the powder on his finger and begins rubbing it on his teeth with practiced movements. You learn that this morning teeth cleaning ritual isn't just about comfort or even health, it's deeply spiritual. The Egyptians believed that clean breath is essential for reciting prayers properly. How can you speak to the gods with a foul mouth? How can you utter the sacred words that maintain Ma'at, the cosmic order, when your breath offends even yourself? Amenhotep offers you some of his tooth powder. You hesitate, looking at the grayish substance. He laughs softly. Better than the alternative, he says, gesturing to his elderly neighbor through the window. The old man has maybe 3 teeth left, and those are black as obsidian. You take a small amount on your finger, copying Amenhotep's movements. The texture is gritty, almost sandy. The taste is actually not terrible. There's a freshness from the mint, a slight bitterness from the myrrh, and an earthy undertone that you'll later learn comes from dried iris flowers. As you rub the mixture on your teeth, Amenhotep explains that different families have different recipes. His comes from his grandfather, who served in the palace of Amenhotep III. The wealthy use more exotic ingredients, frankincense from Punt, cinnamon from distant lands to the east. The poor make do with salt, crushed brick, and whatever aromatic herbs they can find growing along the Nile. The morning ritual continues. After cleaning your teeth, you rinse with natron dissolved in water. Natron, that miraculous salt that the Egyptians use for everything from mummification to laundry. It leaves your mouth feeling surprisingly clean, though the taste makes you wrinkle your nose. You're beginning to understand that in ancient Egypt, dental hygiene isn't optional. It's a marker of civilization, of being truly human rather than beast-like. Animals don't clean their teeth. Barbarians don't care about their breath. But Egyptians, they've been perfecting the art of oral hygiene for over 1,000 years already. The reason becomes clearer as you prepare for the day. The Egyptian diet, you discover, is terrible for teeth. The bread, the staple food for everyone from peasant to pharaoh, is full of sand and grit from the grinding stones. Every meal slowly wears down the teeth. The honey and dates that Egyptians love feed the decay. Without some form of dental care, most people would lose their teeth by middle age. You follow Amenhotep to the local temple, where you observe the morning purification rituals. The priests must clean their mouths before entering the sacred spaces. They use a more elaborate version of the morning routine, special tooth powders blessed by the temple, mouth rinses made with sacred water from the temple's well. One priest shows you his personal tooth cleaning kit. It's a small wooden box containing several compartments. One holds the tooth powder, another contains dried herbs for chewing, and a third has small rolls of linen for cleaning between the teeth. There's even a bronze tool that looks like a primitive toothpick. As the morning progresses and the heat begins to build, you understand why the Egyptians take this so seriously. In the crowded streets of Memphis, in the close quarters of the temple, in the intimate spaces of home life, bad breath is more than just unpleasant. It's a social disaster. You're already planning to stock up on tooth powder at the market. After all, you've got a long journey through ancient Egypt ahead of you, and you'd rather not be remembered as that foreign visitor with the terrible breath. The sun climbs higher over Memphis as you find yourself standing before the great temple of Ptah, clutching a small offering of bread and beer. Your newly cleaned teeth still tingle from the morning's tooth powder, but you're about to discover that what you experienced was merely the common person's version of Egyptian dental care. The priests, those intermediaries between the human and divine realms, have elevated teeth cleaning to an art form that borders on the sacred. A young priest named Quaimwazet notices you lingering by the temple's outer courtyard, and, perhaps taking pity on your obvious foreign confusion, beckons you closer. His teeth, you can't help but notice, are remarkably white against his sun-darkened skin. When he speaks, his breath carries the faint scent of cinnamon and something floral. "You wish to understand our ways?" he asks, and before you can fully respond, he's leading you through a side entrance typically forbidden to common visitors. The privilege isn't lost on you. Temple mysteries are closely guarded, but perhaps your foreign status grants you a certain exemption. Inside the temple's residential quarters, you enter a world where cleanliness isn't just next to godliness, it is godliness. The priests here wake at least 2 hours before dawn, and their first act isn't prayer, but purification. Quaimwazet shows you to a chamber where several priests are preparing for their morning duties. The tooth cleaning ritual here is elaborate beyond anything you imagined. First, the priests rinse their mouths with sacred water, not just any water, but water that has been blessed at dawn, had natron dissolved in it, and been filtered through linen 7 times. 7, always 7, the number of perfection. You watch as an elder priest named Amenhotep demonstrates the proper technique. He doesn't just rub tooth powder on his teeth with his finger like common folk. Instead, he uses a special stick, carved from the wood of the Salvadora persica tree, what they call the toothbrush tree. The end has been carefully frayed to create soft bristles. The mouth speaks the words of power. Amenhotep explains as he meticulously cleans each tooth. How can we recite the spells that keep the universe in order if our breath offends the gods? How can we consume the offerings meant for the divine if our mouths are impure? The tooth powder used in the temple is a closely guarded secret. You're allowed to watch, but not too closely as a priest. Physician mixes a fresh batch. You catch glimpses of ingredients being added. Powdered pumice so fine it's like dust. Ashes from specific sacred woods. Ground pearls from the Red Sea. Mirror resin that's been aged for years. And something wrapped in linen that they won't let you see. That ingredient, Kamwazet whispers to you later, comes from the land of Punt. Some say it's the dried saliva of the Bennu bird, the phoenix. Others claim it's a resin from a tree that grows only where the gods first touched the earth. His smile suggests he doesn't fully believe either story, but the mystery adds to the powder's perceived power. The priests clean their teeth 4 times a day upon waking, before the midday offerings, before the evening ceremonies, and before sleep. Each cleaning is accompanied by specific prayers. You memorize one of the simpler ones. Pure is my mouth, pure are my words, pure is my breath as the breath of Ra when he speaks creation into being. But it's not just about the physical act of cleaning. The priests believe that tooth decay and bad breath are signs of spiritual impurity, evidence that evil spirits have taken residence in the body. A priest with tooth problems might be temporarily banned from handling sacred objects or entering the inner sanctum. You spend the afternoon in the temple's house of life, where physicians study and copy medical texts. Here, you discover that the connection between oral health and divine favor goes back to the very beginning of Egyptian civilization. One papyrus, so old the hieroglyphs are in an archaic style, tells of how the god Thoth first taught humans to clean their teeth after observing ibises cleaning their beaks. An elderly physician named Nebamun shares his decades of observation. I have examined the mouths of hundreds. He tells you, his own teeth still remarkably intact despite his advanced age. Those who neglect the daily cleaning suffer not just in their teeth, but in their entire body. The rot spreads from the mouth to the belly, from the belly to the heart, from the heart to the K itself. He shows you drawings on papyrus, detailed illustrations of teeth, gums, and various dental ailments. The priests have identified different types of tooth decay, gum diseases, and even what appears to be an understanding of abscesses. Their treatments combine practical remedies with spiritual healing, because in the Egyptian mind, the two are inseparable. As evening approaches, you observe the priests preparing for the sunset ceremony. The tooth cleaning beforehand is even more elaborate than the morning ritual. They use a series of rinses, first natron water, then water infused with mint and thyme. Finally, a precious mixture containing wine and honey mixed with ground coriander seeds. One priest allows you to try the temple's special tooth powder. The taste is complex, initially bitter from the myrrh, then cool from what might be mint, with an underlying sweetness and a texture so fine it almost dissolves on your tongue. Your teeth feel incredibly clean afterward, and your breath takes on that same cinnamon, floral scent you noticed on Kamwazet. Tomorrow, Kamwazet promises as you prepare to leave, I will take you to the palace laboratories. If you think our temple powder is impressive, wait until you see what the royal tooth physicians create for Pharaoh himself. As you walk back through Memphis's darkening streets, you run your tongue over your extraordinarily clean teeth. You're beginning to understand that in ancient Egypt, the mouth truly is considered a sacred space, and keeping it clean is both a practical necessity and a divine duty. Dawn breaks over the palace complex, and you're already waiting at the servants' entrance with Kamwazet. The gods know him, apparently. Temple priests are regular consultants to the royal laboratories, and after a brief inspection, you're led through corridors that smell of frankincense and something sharply chemical. The Royal Dental Laboratory is nothing like what you expected. Instead of some cramped chamber, you enter a spacious room with high windows that let in the morning light. Tables made of smooth limestone line the walls, covered with an array of containers, grinding stones, measuring implements, and substances you can't begin to identify. The chief dental scribe, a woman named Nefertiti, not the famous queen, She assures you with a tired smile that suggests she's heard all the jokes, is already at work. Her fingers are stained various colors from the ingredients she handles, and she wears a linen mask over her nose and mouth. Not for protection, she explains, but to avoid contaminating the mixtures with her own breath. Every batch must be perfect, she tells you, gesturing to a papyrus scroll covered in hieratic script. These are not just recipes, they are formulas tested over generations. One wrong measurement, and Pharaoh's morning breath could offend the gods themselves. You watch as her assistants, 3 younger scribes training in the dental arts, prepare for the day's work. First, they purify the workspace with burning sage and prayers. Then they lay out the raw ingredients, each in its own labeled container. The variety is staggering. There's pumice stone from the volcanic islands of the Great Green Sea, so fine it's almost like flour. Eggshells that have been cleaned, dried in the sun for exactly 7 days, then ground to powder. Burnt wheat husks that create a gentle abrasive. Rock salt from the western desert, crystalline and pure. Dried iris flowers from the marshes of the delta. Cinnamon bark that traveled thousands of miles from the mysterious lands of the east. But the real work begins when Nefertiti starts creating a new batch of royal tooth powder. She explains each step as she works, her movements precise as a temple dancer's. First, she measures out the base, a mixture of pumice and burnt eggshell in proportions that she makes you swear not to reveal. 3 parts to 1. She whispers anyway. But the quality of each ingredient matters more than the ratio. You're assigned to help one of the assistants, a young man named Seneb, who's grinding myrrh resin. The work is harder than it looks. The resin must be ground to an impossibly fine powder, with no chunks or grains remaining. Your arms ache after just a few minutes, but Seneb has been doing this for hours. The secret? He shares, is in the rhythm, like the beating of Ra's heart, as he travels across the sky. He demonstrates a steady, circular motion that somehow makes the work easier. As the morning progresses, you witness experiment after experiment. Nefertiti is working on a new formula requested by the Queen Mother, who complains that the current powder is too abrasive for her aging teeth. She tries different proportions, adding a touch of powdered pearl here, a bit less pumice there, testing each mixture on pieces of ivory that simulate tooth enamel. One of the most fascinating ingredients is something they call tooth stone. You eventually realize it's what later cultures will call cream of tartar. They harvest it from wine jars, where it forms as crystals during fermentation. When added to tooth powder, it helps remove stains and creates a slight foaming action that the Egyptians believe carries away evil spirits along with food debris. The most exclusive ingredient is reserved for Pharaoh alone, powdered gold. Not because it cleans better, even Nefertiti admits it does nothing for dental health, but because Pharaoh's mouth must contain the flesh of the gods. The gold is ground so fine it's almost invisible when mixed into the powder, but it adds a subtle shimmer and, more importantly, divine protection. You're allowed to observe as they create a batch of experimental tooth powder using a new ingredient, crushed beetles. Not just any beetles, but a specific species that feeds on mint plants. When dried and ground, they add a natural minty flavor and, supposedly, properties that strengthen the teeth. Seneb volunteers to test it first, and his expression suggests it's not entirely unpleasant. The afternoon is spent in the testing chamber, where brave palace servants try new formulations. Each tester must clean their teeth with the experimental powder for 7 days, reporting on taste, texture, effectiveness, and any side effects. One poor soul is still recovering from a batch that contained too much natron. His tongue was numb for 3 days. Nefertiti shows you her collection of failed experiments. One jar contains a powder that cleaned beautifully, but turned teeth slightly green. Another worked well but tasted so vile that even payment couldn't convince servants to test it a second time. The worst failure was a powder containing crushed pearls and honey that seemed perfect until it attracted ants. Imagine waking up with your mouth full of insects. The successful formulas are recorded in meticulous detail. You watch as a scribe copies the recipe for a new powder that's just passed its final tests. Every ingredient is listed with its source, the season it was collected, the method of preparation, and even the phase of the moon during mixing. Nothing is left to chance. As the day ends, Nefertiti allows you to take a small sample of one of their standard palace formulas, not the royal blend with gold, but the version used by court officials. She wraps it carefully in papyrus, sealing it with wax. Remember, she says, a formula is only as good as its ingredients. The merchants in the market will try to sell you pumice mixed with ground pottery or mere diluted with tree sap. Learn to recognize quality, or your teeth will pay the price. You leave the palace with a new appreciation for the science behind these ancient tooth powders. What seemed like simple folk medicine this morning now reveals itself as sophisticated chemistry, developed through centuries of trial, error, and careful observation. The morning heat is already oppressive as you make your way to the royal stables, an unusual destination for dental research. Yet Kamwazit insisted this is where you need to be, cryptically mentioning that you're about to witness the discovery that changed Egyptian tooth powder forever. The stable master, a gruff man named Kinti, doesn't seem pleased about your presence until Kamwazit produces a small scroll bearing the seal of the palace laboratories. Another one come to see the burning, Kunti mutters, but he leads you past rows of horses and oxen to a peculiar section of the complex. Here, the air is thick with smoke and an acrid smell that makes your eyes water. Workers tend to several fire pits where something is being burned in covered clay vessels. The smell is distinctive, like burning hair mixed with roasting bone, which you realize with some discomfort is exactly what it is. Ox hooves, Kenti explains, warming to his subject now that he sees your genuine curiosity rather than the usual palace disdain. But not just any hooves. They must come from healthy animals, preferably young bulls who've spent their lives walking on clean sand rather than mud. You watch as workers carefully select hooves from a fresh pile. Each one is inspected for cracks, disease, or imperfections. Only the best specimens make it to the burning vessels. The process, you learn, is incredibly precise. The hooves can't be burned too quickly or the resulting ash will be too coarse. Too slowly, and valuable components break down into useless carbon. An elderly craftsman named Amenemhab oversees the burning process. He's been doing this for 40 years, he tells you, ever since his father discovered the secret. It was an accident, he reveals, settling onto a bench to tell the story. My father was burning offerings after a successful ox sacrifice. Some hooves fell into the fire pit and were forgotten until the next morning. He pauses to check one of the vessels, peering through a small hole in the lid. When he cleaned out the pit, he found this white, powdery ash unlike anything from wood or regular bone. On impulse, perhaps the gods inspired him, he mixed it with his regular tooth powder. The results were miraculous. You're invited to observe the crucial moment when the hooves have been perfectly carbonized. Amenemhab carefully opens one vessel, revealing contents that glow red, orange in the dim light. The hooves have transformed into something unrecognizable, twisted, blackened shapes that crumble at the slightest touch. Now comes the delicate part. He says, the burned hooves must cool slowly, naturally, without water or wind. Any rapid temperature change will ruin the quality of the final product. It takes a full day and night for proper cooling. Once cooled, you help with the grinding process. This isn't like grinding herbs or resins. The carbonized hooves are incredibly hard, requiring special grinding stones made from granite. The work is exhausting, and you understand why this ingredient is so valuable. One ox hoof, after burning and grinding, yields only about 2 thumb-sized portions of usable powder. But why hooves? You ask during a break, your arms aching from the grinding. Amenemhab smiles, revealing teeth that are remarkably white for his age. Hooves contain something special. The palace physicians have many theories, but I think it's the blessing of Apis, the sacred bull. Cattle walk the earth, connecting ground and sky. Their hooves absorb the power of both. Kaimwaset, ever the scholar, offers a more practical explanation. The hooves are made of something similar to our teeth and nails. When burned properly, they create a powder that cleans without destroying. Too many tooth powders wear away the teeth themselves. Ox hoof ash cleans while protecting. You're shown different grades of the finished product. The finest powder, white as fresh linen, is reserved for the royal family. A slightly coarser grade goes to nobles and wealthy merchants. Even the lowest grade, which contains some impurities and larger particles, is still highly prized. The real revelation comes when you visit the mixing room. Here, master craftsmen combine the ox hoof ash with other ingredients to create the final tooth powders. The proportions are carefully guarded secrets, but you observe the general process. For a basic mixture, they combine 1 part ox hoof ash with 2 parts fine pumice, adding smaller amounts of salt, dried mint, and myrrh. But the variations are endless. Some add ground cuttlefish bone for extra whitening. Others include ashes from specific woods, acacia for its medicinal properties, or cedar for its pleasant scent. You're allowed to try grinding some pre-burned hooves yourself. The texture is unlike anything you've handled, simultaneously hard and brittle, creating a powder so fine it floats in the air like dust. Your nose itches from the particles, but there's something almost sweet about the smell. Nothing like the acrid, burning scent from earlier. One of the workers shares a trade secret. The best ash comes from the right front hoof of a white ox. Whether this is superstition or based on some real difference, everyone swears by it. These special hooves are saved for the most exclusive formulations, including a legendary powder made for Ramesses II that supposedly kept his teeth strong until his death at 90. As afternoon fades, you help package the finished ox hoof ash into small clay containers, each one sealed with beeswax and marked with hieroglyphs indicating the date, the source of the hooves, and the craftsman responsible. This attention to detail ensures quality control. If a batch causes problems, they can trace it back to its source. People think we just burn hooves and call it medicine. Kenty says as you prepare to leave. But this is an art passed down through generations. My grandfather supplied the palace of Thutmose II. My son will continue when I can no longer tell perfect ash from merely good. You leave with a new appreciation for this strange ingredient. What seemed bizarre, brushing your teeth with burnt animal hooves, now makes a certain sense. In a world without modern chemistry, the Egyptians have discovered through trial and error what works, turning humble ox hooves into the key ingredient for dental health. The small vial of pure ox hoof ash that Amenemhab gifts you feels more precious than gold. Mixed with the palace formula Nefertiti gave you, you'll have tooth powder worthy of royalty itself. The sun hasn't yet reached its zenith as you navigate the chaotic streets of Memphis's Grand Bazaar. The assault on your senses is immediate. Incense smoke mingles with the smell of fresh bread, rotting vegetables, and something indefinably animal. But you're here for a specific purpose, to understand how ordinary Egyptians maintain their dental health when they can't afford palace-grade tooth powders or perfectly carbonized ox hooves. Your guide today is IP, a barber surgeon who's agreed to show you the thriving world of street dentistry. He's a cheerful man with surprisingly good teeth for someone of modest means, and his stall sits at the intersection of two busy market streets where foot traffic is constant. Location is everything, IP explains as he sets up his equipment. People need to see others getting their teeth cleaned. Fear of the unknown keeps many away, but when they watch their neighbors leaving with clean teeth and fresh breath, curiosity wins. His setup is simple but organized. A three-legged stool for customers, a low table holding various implements, several clay pots with different tooth powders, and a large jar of mint-infused water for rinsing. Everything is arranged to be visible to passers-by. Transparency builds trust in a profession where charlatans are common. The first customer arrives before IP has finished arranging his tools. She's an elderly woman. A regular by the familiar way, she settles onto the stool. Without prompting, she opens her mouth wide, revealing teeth stained brown from years of beer and bread. The noble ladies worry about white teeth. IP tells you as he examines her mouth. The common people just want teeth that don't hurt. He selects one of his simpler powders. You glimpse salt, crushed brick dust, and what might be dried herbs. His technique is rougher than what you observed in the palace, but effective. Using a frayed stick, he scrubs each tooth vigorously while the woman winces but doesn't complain. The transformation is remarkable. While her teeth don't gleam white like a priestess's, they're noticeably cleaner, and when she rinses and spits, the water is disturbingly dark. 3 copper daben, IP says, and she pays without haggling, clearly a fair price for the service. As she leaves, she's already telling a friend about how much better her mouth feels. The morning brings a steady stream of customers. You help by preparing rinse water and learn that even this simple task has its tricks. The mint must be fresh, bruised slightly to release its oils, and the water should be warm but not hot. Too cold and it shocks sensitive teeth. Too hot and it loses its refreshing quality. Between customers, IP shows you his collection of tooth powders. Unlike the palace with its exotic ingredients, these are made from whatever's affordable and available. The basic mixture is salt and natron, cheap, effective, but harsh on the gums. Adding crushed mint or thyme improves the taste and provides some healing properties. See this. He holds up a jar of reddish powder, crushed pottery mixed with honey powder. The pottery acts like pumice, but costs nothing, just broken pots ground fine. The honey powder helps it stick to the teeth. Not as good as ox hoof ash, but it works. One customer, a young scribe, specifically requests IP's special powder. This turns out to be his premium mixture, containing actual pumice, a touch of myrrh, and his secret ingredient, ground fish bones from the sacred perch of the Nile. Calcium, he says, using a word you don't recognize. Good for the teeth. I learned it from a Greek merchant. The noon rush brings more challenging cases. A laborer arrives with a swollen jaw and breath that makes you step back. IP examines him carefully, then shakes his head. This is beyond cleaning. You need the tooth puller 2 streets over. But after he's done with you, come back and I'll give you powder to prevent this happening again. You watch IP handle different social classes with skill. For wealthy merchants, he has finer powders and takes more time, charging accordingly. For poor laborers, he offers basic cleaning with the simplest powder, sometimes accepting payment in goods rather than copper. A baker trades fresh bread for tooth cleaning. A potter provides a new mixing bowl. One fascinating aspect is the performance element. Ipoi doesn't work in silence. He keeps up a constant patter, explaining what he's doing, making jokes, telling stories about teeth he's seen. This serves multiple purposes. It distracts nervous customers, educates onlookers, and advertises his services. "The worst teeth I ever saw," he announces loudly while working on a merchant's mouth. "Belonged to a honey seller. Sweet all day, never cleaned at night. When he finally came to me, I could have grown barley in the gaps between his teeth." The crowd laughs, and you notice several people unconsciously running their tongues over their own teeth. By afternoon, some of these same onlookers have become customers. Ipoi also sells tooth powders for home use, wrapped in small papyrus packets. He shows you how he packages them, adding a tiny wooden stick for application. People lose the sticks, use their fingers instead, then wonder why the powder doesn't work as well. So I always include one. A competitor sets up across the street. A younger man with flashier equipment and louder claims. "Teeth white as the full moon," he shouts. "Breath sweet as lotus blossoms." Secret formula from the temples of Karnak. Ipoi watches with amusement. "He'll last a month," he predicts. "Maybe 2. People try the fancy promises once, but they come back to someone reliable. Sure enough, you notice one of the competitor's customers arguing about results that didn't match the promises. As the day winds down, Ipoi counts his earnings, a respectable sum that would surprise those who look down on street dentistry. "I clean maybe 30 mouths on a good day," he calculates. "That's 30 people who go home with better breath, less pain, more confidence." The palace physicians treat one Pharaoh. I treat the city. His final customer of the day is a small boy, terrified and dragged by his mother. Ipoi's whole demeanor changes. He becomes gentle, funny, letting the boy hold the tools, smell the powders, even help mix a batch of rinse water. When it comes time for the actual cleaning, the boy barely notices, too engaged in Ipoi's story about a crocodile who never cleaned his teeth. As you help Ipoi pack up his supplies, you realize you've witnessed something remarkable. This isn't just commerce, it's public health. Delivered one mouth at a time by someone who understands that dental care shouldn't be the exclusive province of the wealthy. The palace morgue is not where you expected to spend your afternoon, but the chief physician Amenhotep insists this is where the true story of Egyptian dental health is written. The cool, underground chambers beneath the palace medical complex are a stark contrast to the blazing heat above, and the smell of natron and cedar oil permeates everything. The living lie, Amenhotep says bluntly as he leads you past tables where bodies in various states of mummification rest. They claim to clean their teeth daily, to use only the finest powders, to avoid honey except on feast days. But the dead tell the truth, and their teeth reveal everything. You're here to examine royal mummies, a privilege rarely granted even to Egyptian physicians. The reason becomes clear as Amenhotep unwraps the face of a minor prince who died 50 years ago. Despite the preservation, you can clearly see the state of his teeth, and it's shocking. This prince had access to the best dental care in the world. Amenhotep explains, gently opening the mummy's jaw. Personal tooth cleaners, the finest ox hoof powders, physicians who examined his mouth monthly. And yet, he points to obvious cavities, worn enamel, and gaps where teeth have fallen out. The irony isn't lost on you. All those elaborate tooth powders, those careful rituals, and still the royalty suffered from dental problems that would horrify their subjects. Amenhotep has a theory about this, one he's developed over years of examining royal remains. The wealthy eat too much honey, he states simply. They can afford it, so they add it to everything. Honey cakes, honey beer, dates stuffed with honey and nuts. The poor eat bread and onions, bad for the teeth, because of the grit, yes, but not as destructive as the constant sweetness the rich enjoy. You examine several more royal mummies, each telling its own dental story. A queen who died at 30 shows advanced gum disease, despite hieroglyphic records claiming she was famous for her beautiful smile. A high priest has teeth worn down to nubs, likely from a lifetime of enthusiastic cleaning with abrasive powders. The most fascinating case is Pharaoh Amenhotep III, whose mummy Amenhotep has special permission to study. The great king who ruled Egypt at its height of power suffered from dental abscesses, so severe they likely contributed to his death. You can see the holes in his jawbone where infection ate through the bone itself. He had the best dentists, the finest powders, everything gold could buy, Amenhotep muses. But he also had a famous sweet tooth, and refused to let anyone pull diseased teeth, because he believed it would weaken his divine power. So the infection spread until even ox hoof powder mixed with gold couldn't save him. The examination reveals other patterns. Nobles who lived by the Nile often have better teeth than those from the desert palaces. Amenhotep suspects the river water contains something beneficial. Women generally have worse teeth than men, possibly from calcium loss during pregnancy, and the custom of chewing certain roots to prevent conception. You help Amenhotep carefully document the dental conditions of each mummy. He's creating a comprehensive record, hoping to find patterns that might improve treatments for the living. Each tooth is examined, its condition noted, any remaining dental work catalogued. Some mummies show evidence of ancient dental procedures. One princess has a gold wire holding a loose tooth in place. A vizier has what appears to be an artificial tooth made from ivory, attached to neighboring teeth with gold bands. These early attempts at dentistry are impressive, but, judging by the bone damage around them, probably caused as many problems as they solved. The pain they must have endured. Amenhotep says quietly, examining a mummy with multiple abscesses. We have powders for cleaning, pastes for numbing, but when the rot goes deep, we're as helpless as farmers. Pull the tooth and risk bleeding to death, or leave it and risk the poison spreading. The children's mummies are the most revealing about preventive care. Royal children who died young often have surprisingly good teeth. Their time, exposed to honey and sweet foods, was limited. But you can see the beginning of problems, tiny cavities, early wear from bread grit, the first signs of what would have become serious issues had they lived. One particularly interesting discovery is a teenage prince whose teeth show unusual wear patterns. Amenhotep determines he was using a tooth powder that was far too abrasive, probably heavy in pumice and salt without enough softening ingredients. In trying to achieve perfectly white teeth, he was destroying them. This is why I tell the living to be moderate in all things, Amenhotep says. Clean your teeth, yes, but don't scrub them like you're scouring a pot. Use good powder, but not too much. Rinse with natron water, but diluted. The mouth is not a battlefield where you must defeat an enemy. It's a garden that needs gentle, consistent care. As the day progresses, you help Amenhotep prepare samples of tooth powder found in canopic jars and burial goods. Even after decades or centuries, some retain their distinctive smells. The royal powders are indeed finer, more complex than common mixtures. But the mummies prove that expensive ingredients don't guarantee healthy teeth. The most sobering moment comes when Amenhotep shows you his masterwork, a papyrus scroll documenting 200 years of royal dental health. The patterns are clear. Each generation faces the same problems, makes the same mistakes, suffers the same pain. Despite all the advances in tooth powder formulation, the fundamental challenge remains. We can clean the surface, Amenhotep concludes as you prepare to leave the cool darkness. What can freshen the breath, remove stains, even slow decay? But we cannot cure what's already rotten, cannot rebuild what's lost. The best tooth powder in the world is worth less than prevention. As you emerge into the late afternoon sun, blinking after hours in the morgue's darkness, you carry with you a profound truth. Those perfect smiles carved on temple walls, those pristine teeth painted in tomb portraits, they're aspirations, not reality. Even Pharaoh, God King of Egypt, couldn't escape the democracy of dental decay. The living may perfect their tooth powders, refine their ox hoof ash, import exotic ingredients from the ends of the earth. But in the end, the mummies remind us that we're all human, all vulnerable, all fighting the same slow battle against time and decay, one tooth at a time. Your hands are sticky with tree sap as you follow the herbalist Thutmose through a grove of Salvadora, persica trees on the outskirts of Memphis. The morning dew still clings to the leaves, and the air smells green and slightly medicinal. These aren't impressive trees, scraggly, thorny things that struggle in the dry soil, but Thutmose treats them with the reverence usually reserved for temple gardens. Every part of this tree serves dental health, he explains, selecting a branch about as thick as your thumb. But the secret is knowing when and how to harvest. He shows you the signs of a good tooth. Stick branch young enough to be flexible, old enough to have developed the right fiber structure with no signs of insect damage or disease. You help him cut several branches, wrapping them carefully in damp linen to preserve their moisture. The work is precise. Cut too much, and you'll harm the tree's growth. Cut too little, and you won't have enough supply for the market demand. Thutmose has been doing this for 20 years, supplying tooth sticks to everyone from palace servants to dock workers. Back at his workshop, the real craft begins. The branches must be prepared immediately while still fresh. Thutmose demonstrates the technique first. Strip the bark carefully, revealing the white wood beneath. The smell is immediately noticeable, peppery, slightly antiseptic, with an undertone that makes your mouth water. This scent, Thutmose says, is the tree's medicine. It fights the evil spirits that cause tooth decay. Whether you believe in spirits or not, there's definitely something in the wood that feels cleansing. The next step is crucial, fraying the end to create bristles. This isn't random bashing. It's a skilled process of gently hammering the wood fibers until they separate into soft, brush-like strands. Too much force and the fibers break uselessly. Too little and they remain too stiff to clean effectively. You try it yourself, fumbling with the wooden mallet and stone anvil. Your first attempt produces a splintered mess that Thutmose kindly sets aside for kindling. The second is better, though still far from the perfectly frayed brushes he creates with seemingly effortless movements. The wood teaches you, he says, guiding your hand. Feel how the fibers want to separate. Work with the tree, not against it. It's surprisingly meditative work, requiring focus and patience. By your fifth attempt, you've created something that actually resembles a functional tooth stick. Different woods serve different purposes, you learn. The Salvadora persica is the gold standard, naturally antibacterial, pleasant tasting, with fibers that clean without damaging. But Thutmose also works with licorice root for those who prefer sweetness, neem wood for its powerful medicinal properties, and even olive wood for those who can afford imported materials. The workshop is filled with tooth sticks in various stages of preparation. Some are simple, basic tools sold cheaply at the market. Others are elaborate, with carved handles depicting protective deities, wrapped in colored thread. Some even tipped with silver or copper for the wealthy, who want their dental tools to reflect their status. A good tooth Stick is like a good friend. Thutmose philosophizes while showing you how to judge quality. Reliable, always there when you need it. And it makes your life better. He demonstrates proper technique, gently chewing the end to soften it further, then using a combination of vertical and horizontal movements to clean each tooth surface. The difference from finger-applied powder is remarkable. The stick reaches places your finger can't. The fibers work the powder into crevices, and the wood itself adds its own cleaning properties. Plus, there's something satisfying about the process, a ritual that feels more thorough than quick finger rubbing. Thutmose's wife, Merit, handles the medicinal preparations. She shows you how they soak certain sticks in various solutions to enhance their properties. Mint water for freshness, mirror tincture for healing, even diluted wine for its antiseptic qualities. The treated sticks are then dried in the shade, preserving the absorbed medicines. The priests say cleanliness is godliness. Merit comments, carefully turning drying sticks to ensure even treatment. But I say cleanliness is good business. A man with clean teeth smiles more, talks more confidently, succeeds in trade. Worth more than any blessing. You spend the afternoon learning about regional preferences. Northern Egyptians prefer thicker sticks they can use multiple times. Southern traders want thin, disposable ones they can discard after each use. The Greeks who trade in Memphis ask for olive wood exclusively, while Nubian merchants seek out specific acacia varieties from their homeland. The most elaborate tooth stick you see is a commission for a noble woman. The handle is carved ivory, ethically sourced from naturally deceased elephants, Thutmose assures you, inlaid with lapis lazuli in a pattern of protective eyes. The business end is finest Salvadora persica, pre-frayed to silky softness, and the whole thing is stored in a custom cedar case. 3 months of work, Thutmose admits, for something she'll use for maybe 2 weeks before the bristles wear out. But he shows you how the handle is designed to accept replacement heads, an innovation that lets the wealthy keep their decorative handles while replacing the functional part. As evening approaches, you help package tooth sticks for tomorrow's market. Each bundle is wrapped in papyrus with instructions for use, a necessity, Thutmose explains, as many people still don't understand that you're supposed to fray the end, not just chew random sticks. The children's tooth sticks are especially clever, carved with animal heads, some with little bells attached. They make dental care fun rather than a chore. Thutmose shows you letters from grateful parents whose children actually ask to clean their teeth now. The future of Egyptian teeth, he says proudly, lies not just in better powders but in better tools. A good tooth stick with average powder cleans better than the finest powder applied badly. As you prepare to leave, Thutmose presents you with a set of tooth sticks, different woods, different preparations, even a small knife for maintaining the frayed ends. Try them all, he encourages. Find what works for your mouth. Every person's teeth are different, like every tree is different. Walking home, you absently chew on a licorice root stick, enjoying the sweet taste and the way the fibers massage your gums. It's a simple tool, just a prepared piece of wood, but it represents thousands of years of observation and refinement, from someone first noticing that chewing certain twigs cleaned their teeth to Thutmose's sophisticated workshop. The evolution of the tooth stick parallels the evolution of Egyptian civilization itself. The evening banquet at the house of Kamhiset, overseer of the royal granaries, is in full swing as you arrive. The sound of laughter and music drifts over the high walls of his villa, but you're not here just for entertainment. Tonight, you'll witness firsthand how dental hygiene intersects with social status in the complex world of Egyptian elite society. Your host greets you at the entrance, his smile revealing teeth that gleam white even in the flickering torchlight. He's clearly one of those who takes dental care seriously. His breath carries the distinctive scent of cinnamon and myrrh that marks expensive tooth powder. But as you'll soon discover, not everyone here is so diligent. The main hall is packed with Memphis's social climbers and established elite. Servants weave between groups carrying trays of honey cakes, dates stuffed with almonds, and cups of sweet wine. You notice immediately how people position themselves when talking close enough to show intimacy, but far enough to avoid any unfortunate breath encounters. Nefertari, wife of a successful papyrus merchant, corners you near a pillar. She's beautiful, wealthy, dripping in gold jewelry. But when she laughs at your carefully crafted joke, you understand why she covers her mouth with her hand. The smell that escapes is memorable, like old fish mixed with sour beer. I simply don't have time for all these tooth rituals, she confides after her third cup of wine loosens her tongue. My servant claims to clean my teeth each morning, but I suspect she just waves the stick around to appease me. She leans closer conspiratorially, and you fight the urge to step back. Besides, my husband doesn't complain. You glance across the room where her husband stands a careful arm's length from everyone he speaks to, and suspect he's simply too polite or too afraid to mention it. The entertainment begins: acrobats, musicians, and a storyteller whose tales of gods and heroes captivate the crowd. But you're more interested in the social dynamics playing out around you. Watch how the conversations flow and ebb based on invisible barriers of breath and dental health. There's Amenemheb, a rising young scribe in the treasury. Handsome, intelligent, well connected, but his teeth are stained brown from cheap beer and neglect. You watch him approach the beautiful daughter of a noble family. She smiles politely at first, but as he moves closer to whisper something witty, her expression freezes. She makes an excuse about needing to speak to her mother and doesn't return. Poor boy, says your companion for the evening, a priestess named Isitnofrit who serves in the temple of Bastet. He could marry well if only he'd invest in decent tooth powder, but he spends all his money on clothes and papyrus, thinking appearance matters more than essence. Isitnofret herself is a testament to the power of good dental care. Not traditionally beautiful, perhaps a bit plain by Egyptian standards, but her brilliant smile and fresh breath make her one of the most sought after conversation partners at the party. Men and women alike gravitate toward her, comfortable in close proximity. The meal itself becomes a lesson in dental damage. The menu is a dentist's nightmare: honey glazed duck, fruits soaked in sweet wine, bread that's soft and white, therefore expensive, but still contains enough grit to wear down enamel, candied lotus roots, and to finish, honey cakes so sweet they make your teeth ache. You watch the elite of Memphis slowly destroy their teeth with every bite, even as they pride themselves on using the finest tooth powders. It's like watching people bail water from a boat while simultaneously drilling holes in the hull. A commotion near the garden entrance draws everyone's attention. A young noble named Quaimoiset, not your priest friend, but a cousin, has arrived late, slightly drunk and in a belligerent mood. He's handsome, from an excellent family, and completely unaware that his breath could strip paint from a temple wall. Why does everyone keep backing away? He complains loudly, trying to embrace friends who dodge with practiced ease. Is there something wrong with my new kilt? No one has the courage to tell him the truth. In Egyptian society, commenting on someone's breath is almost as rude as the bad breath itself. So the party reorganizes around him like water around a stone, everyone maintaining safe distances while pretending nothing's wrong. The evening's entertainment reaches its climax with a poetry competition. Young nobles take turns reciting love poems, hoping to impress potential partners. One particularly clever youth named Senemet has everyone entranced with his wordplay and metaphors. But when he steps close to whisper the final, most intimate lines to a blushing young woman, she turns her head away. Later, you overhear her friends consoling her. "Such a shame," one says. "Is perfect in every way except, you know." They all nod sympathetically. In the marriage market of the Egyptian elite, bad breath can trump wealth, looks, and talent combined. The host's wife, Mutemwea, takes you aside to show you something. In a private chamber, she reveals an entire room dedicated to dental care. Shelves lined with different tooth powders from across the known world, collections of tooth, sticks sorted by hardness and flavor, rinses in crystal bottles, even a silver-backed mirror specifically for examining teeth. "This is my secret," she says with a smile that shows perfectly maintained teeth despite her 50 years. "Every morning, I spend an hour on dental care. Every evening, another hour. My husband laughs, says I'm obsessed, but notice how he never stands downwind of other wives at parties." She demonstrates her evening routine first, a thorough cleaning with ox hoof powder mixed with pearl dust. Then, flossing with thin papyrus strips soaked in mint oil. A rinse with wine mixed with honey and cinnamon. Finally, chewing a special resin from punt that leaves the breath sweet for hours. "It's not vanity," she insists. "Well, not just vanity. In our world, your breath speaks before you do. Bad teeth close doors that gold can't open." As the party winds down, you notice the subtle social reorganization that happens. Couples pair off, but not always as you'd expect based on attractiveness or status. The plain daughter of a minor official, blessed with excellent dental hygiene, leaves on the arm of one of the evening's most eligible bachelors. Meanwhile, the stunning Nefertari goes home with only her long-suffering husband. The last conversation you overhear perfectly encapsulates the evening. Two matrons are discussing potential matches for their children. "He's perfect for your daughter," one says. "Good family, excellent prospects, and have you noticed his teeth? Like polished ivory. That shows character. Attention to detail. A man who cares for his teeth will care for a wife." Walking home through the quiet streets, you reflect on what you've witnessed. In this society where people stand close, speak intimately, share food and drink, dental hygiene isn't just about health, it's about belonging. The finest clothes and jewels can't overcome the social barrier of bad breath. The most brilliant mind grows dim when people won't come close enough to hear its thoughts. The House of Life attached to the great Temple of Ptah houses one of Memphis's most valuable treasures, not gold or jewels, but knowledge written on papyrus. You're here before dawn, special permission granted to study the medical texts that hold centuries of accumulated wisdom about dental care. The elderly priest, physician Nebamun, has agreed to guide you through these ancient writings, though he warns that some scrolls are so fragile that breathing too hard near them might cause damage. The library smells of papyrus, ink, and the cedar oil used to protect the scrolls from insects. Shelves upon shelves hold the medical knowledge of Egypt, categorized by body part and ailment. The dental section, Nebamun shows you, takes up an entire wall testament to how seriously Egyptians have always taken oral health. We begin with the oldest. Nebamun says, carefully unrolling a papyrus that's brown with age. This dates from the Pyramid Age, over 1,000 years ago. See how the hieroglyphs are written. Ancient style, but the knowledge. He points to a passage, still relevant today. The text describes a tooth powder made from crushed granite, natron, and medicinal herbs. What's fascinating is the reasoning provided, not just what to use, but why. The ancient physician understood that tooth decay came from worms that eat the ivory, their metaphorical way of describing bacterial action. You spend the morning copying passages, your hand cramping from trying to replicate the precise hieratic script. Each medical papyrus reveals new layers of understanding. The Edwin Smith papyrus, primarily about surgical procedures, includes detailed instructions for treating dental abscesses. The Ebers papyrus, the most comprehensive medical text, contains over 20 different tooth powder recipes. Notice how they evolve. Neberman points out, the earliest recipes are simple salt, herbs, maybe some pumice. But see here. He indicates a section written perhaps 500 years later. Now they're adding ox hoof ash, specifying exact proportions, describing preparation methods. Knowledge building on knowledge. One recipe particularly catches your attention. It's for a tooth powder specifically designed for pregnant women, with ingredients chosen to provide extra nourishment for both mother and developing child. The annotation mentions that women often lose teeth during pregnancy. So this powder contains crushed bones from Nile perch, extra mint for morning sickness, and honey powder for energy. The papyri don't just list ingredients, they include case studies. One describes a merchant who came to the physician with teeth, black as charcoal and breath like a dying crocodile. The treatment involved not just tooth powder, but dietary changes, regular rinsing with specially prepared waters, and even therapeutic chewing of certain barks. What happened to him, you ask? Neberman smiles. Turn the papyrus over. On the back, in different handwriting, is a follow-up note. The merchant's teeth improved so dramatically that he married above his station and funded an expansion of the temple medical school. Ancient Egyptian success story documented for posterity. The most valuable text is the newest, a compilation created just 50 years ago by the legendary physician Amenhotep, son of Hapu. He traveled throughout Egypt and beyond, collecting dental knowledge from every source he could find. Greek merchants, Nubian traders, even mysterious travelers from the Far East, all contributed to his comprehensive work. His papyrus includes not just Egyptian practices, but comparative dentistry. The Greeks, he notes, use more wine-based rinses. The Nubians prefer certain tree barks unknown in Egypt. Eastern traders introduced the concept of oil pulling, swishing sesame oil to remove impurities. Each practice is tested, evaluated, and either incorporated or rejected based on results. This is my favorite section. Neberman shows you. It's Amenhotep's experiments with different abrasives. He systematically tested dozens of materials, various stones, shells, bones, plant materials, rating each for cleaning power versus damage to tooth enamel. His conclusion: ox hoof ash mixed with cuttlefish bone provides the best balance of efficacy and safety. The papyri also contain warnings. One physician documents a tooth powder that seemed miraculous, whitening teeth in days rather than weeks. Further investigation revealed it contained an acid that dissolved the tooth surface along with stains. Users had brilliant white teeth for a few months before the weakened enamel crumbled away entirely. You're particularly intrigued by the diagnostic sections. Egyptian physicians have identified different types of tooth pain, each requiring different treatments. Sharp, stabbing pain suggests exposure of the inner tooth. Dull, throbbing pain indicates deep decay. Pain only when chewing means cracks or loose teeth. Each condition has its specific remedies. The psychological aspects aren't ignored either. One papyrus discusses patients who clean their teeth obsessively, wearing away enamel in pursuit of impossible whiteness. The recommended treatment: counseling to address the underlying anxiety, combined with a gentler tooth powder that satisfies the cleaning urge without causing damage. As afternoon light filters through the high windows, Nebaman shows you his personal addition to the collection, a work in progress documenting new discoveries. He's been experimenting with tooth powders for different life stages. Children need gentler formulations. Elderly patients require powders that won't irritate receding gums. Pregnant women benefit from added minerals. Knowledge isn't static, he explains while adding notes about a recent case. Each patient teaches us something new. Each failure points toward future success. The library also contains correspondence between physicians across Egypt. Letters debating the merits of different ingredients, sharing unusual cases, warning about dangerous practices spreading through the markets. It's a medical community connected by papyrus and the shared goal of improving dental health. One letter particularly stands out. A physician in Thebes writes about treating workers building the royal tombs. The tomb air, full of limestone dust, was destroying their teeth. He developed a special rinse using oils to protect the tooth surface and herbs to heal damaged gums. His success led to the practice being adopted at construction sites throughout Egypt. As you prepare to leave, Nebaman creates a small papyrus for you, a personal compilation of the most practical knowledge from the ancient texts. Basic recipes that work, diagnostic tips, warnings about dangerous ingredients. Theory is important, he says, but practice saves teeth. The sun is setting as you emerge from the house of life, your mind buzzing with centuries of accumulated wisdom. These aren't just recipes and remedies, they're the documented struggle of humanity against decay, one carefully recorded case at a time. In modern times, we might use different terms, understand the science differently, but the fundamental challenge remains the same. The years have passed like the annual Nile floods, and you find yourself once again in Memphis, but now as a recognized expert in dental matters. Your journey through the world of Egyptian tooth care has transformed you from curious observer to practitioner and teacher. The morning sun illuminates your modest clinic near the Temple district, where people now come seeking the knowledge you've accumulated about the remarkable invention of toothpaste from ox hooves. Your first patient today is a young scribe named Senesret, whose grandfather you treated years ago with a formula learned in the palace laboratories. He carries on the family tradition of meticulous dental care, arriving with his own tooth, stick and asking detailed questions about the latest powder formulations. As you mix his personalized blend, oxhoof ash base with a touch of myrrh for his sensitive gums, you reflect on how this ancient innovation has endured. The oxhoof discovery, you've come to understand through years of study and practice, was more than just ancient chemistry. It represented humanity's first systematic approach to preventive dental care. Those long-ago Egyptians who noticed that burned hooves created superior cleaning powder laid the foundation for thousands of years of oral hygiene practices. Your assistant, trained in the methods you've documented, prepares the day's tooth powders. The basic formula hasn't changed much. The oxhoof ash still forms the cornerstone, mixed with pumice for abrasion, salt for its antiseptic properties, and aromatic herbs for freshness. But you've added refinements learned from studying hundreds of mouths, a touch of ground pearl for those who can afford it, powdered mint leaves dried at the exact moment of peak potency. Even experimentally, some of the Eastern oils that traveling merchants have introduced. A commotion outside announces the arrival of your most challenging patient, Comiset, the nobleman whose breath once cleared rooms at social gatherings. 5 years of treatment have transformed him from social pariah to one of Memphis's most eligible bachelors. His teeth, once brown and neglected, now gleam reasonably white. More importantly, his breath no longer precedes him like an unwelcome herald. The usual mixture. You ask, though you know his preferences by heart. He's become almost obsessive about dental care, cleaning his teeth 4 times daily with the special formula. You developed heavy on the ox hoof ash for its proven effectiveness, lighter on abrasives to protect his previously damaged enamel, with extra mint and cinnamon for confidence. As you work, preparing powders and examining patients, the stream of visitors reveals how Egyptian dental knowledge has spread and evolved. A Greek merchant seeks your Egyptian tooth powder to take back to Athens. A Nubian princess wants to learn the ox hoof burning technique to establish production in her homeland. Even a mysterious traveler from the Far East observes carefully, occasionally nodding, as if confirming knowledge from his own tradition. The afternoon brings a delegation from the palace. The new young Pharaoh, having heard of your expertise, wants to establish a formal school of dental medicine. You're to help design the curriculum, ensuring that the knowledge accumulated over millennia isn't lost to time. The irony doesn't escape you. The same palace that once guarded its dental secrets jealously now wants to spread the knowledge for the good of all Egypt. You show the delegation your teaching materials, detailed drawings of tooth anatomy copied from ancient papyri, jars containing every ingredient used in tooth powders from the common to the exotic, tooth sticks from different trees showing various stages of use, even preserved teeth displaying different types of decay and wear. The systematic approach impresses them, and they approve your plan on the spot. Your final patient of the day embodies the legacy of Egyptian dental innovation. She's a master craftswoman who creates decorative tooth powder containers, exquisite faience jars glazed in brilliant blues and greens, each one a small work of art. Her teeth, maintained with religious devotion using traditional formulas, allow her to smile confidently as she shows her latest creations. My grandmother told me, she shares while you perform her routine examination, that in her grandmother's time, people just chewed on twigs and rinsed with beer. Now look at us, we have powders for every purpose, tools designed for cleaning, knowledge passed down through generations, all because someone thought to burn an ox hoof. As evening approaches and your clinic empties, you take a moment to perform your own dental routine. The ox hoof powder you use is your personal blend, refined through years of experimentation. As you clean each tooth methodically with your well-worn Salvadora persica stick, you taste the complex mixture, earthy from the ash, sharp from the salt, cooling from the mint, with that indescribable freshness that only properly prepared ox hoof ash provides. The formula spreads far beyond Egypt now. Caravans carry it along trade routes to distant lands where people adapt it to local ingredients and preferences. The basic principle, using carbonized animal material as a gentle abrasive, appears in various forms across cultures. What started in the stable yards of Memphis has become a universal human practice. You think of all the mouths you've examined, all the smiles you've helped preserve, all the social disasters averted by fresh breath and clean teeth. From the highest nobility to the humblest workers, everyone benefits from this ancient innovation. The ox hoof, that humble byproduct of livestock, transformed into something that enhances daily life for millions. Your students arrive for evening lessons, eager to learn the proper way to carbonize hooves, the exact proportions for mixing, the subtle art of customizing formulas for individual needs. You teach them not just the how, but the why, the understanding that preventive care surpasses any treatment. That consistency matters more than exotic ingredients, that the goal isn't just white teeth, but healthy mouths that last a lifetime. As night falls over Memphis and oil lamps cast flickering shadows on your workshop walls, you prepare tomorrow's batches of tooth powder. The rhythmic grinding of pestle against mortar creates an almost meditative atmosphere. Each stroke connects you to countless generations who performed this same action, preparing the same basic formula, serving the same fundamental human need. The legacy of Egyptian toothpaste extends beyond mere dental hygiene. It represents humanity's refusal to accept decay as inevitable, our creativity in transforming waste into wellness, our dedication to refining and passing down practical knowledge. That first Egyptian who looked at burned ox hooves and saw potential rather than garbage sparked a revolution that continues to this day. In the quiet of your workshop, surrounded by the tools and ingredients of your trade, you smile a bright, confident smile made possible by the very powders you create. Tomorrow will bring new patience, new challenges, new refinements to ancient formulas. But tonight, you simply appreciate the elegant simplicity of it all: ox hooves, fire, careful preparation, and the universal human desire for a healthy, fresh smile. The Egyptian gift to humanity wasn't just a recipe for toothpaste. It was the understanding that small daily actions, repeated consistently with the right materials, could preserve the gateway to our bodies and the instrument of our communication. In every jar of tooth powder, in every carefully frayed tooth stick, in every fresh breath and confident smile, the innovation lives on. As we drift away from ancient Memphis, let the rhythm of pestles grinding precious powders fade into the whisper of night winds along the Nile. Your journey through Egyptian dental care draws to a peaceful close, but the knowledge lingers like the taste of mint and myrrh. Perhaps tomorrow you'll wake with a new appreciation for that simple tube of toothpaste in your bathroom, understanding its ancient lineage traced back to burned ox hooves and temple laboratories. Maybe you'll think of those long-ago Egyptians who refused to accept morning breath as unchangeable fate. For now, let your thoughts settle like fine powder in an alabaster jar. Your breathing slows to match the gentle rhythm of the river that nourished this remarkable civilization. Close your eyes and rest, knowing that even in sleep, the ancient wisdom endures, patient, practical, and ever present as the Egyptian stars above. Sweet dreams and fresh breath come morning.